Nothing but love gives the world some meaning. Nothing but love is the drug of healing. Lover be soft, lover be bold.
I've only heard that once at the
Okay.
Girl at the End of the World album launch shows that they did in early 2016. And I don't think I'd largely paid much attention to it until then.
In a hole, way over your head, in need of a friend to come round and take you to bed.
So next up, I've gone with a very recent one, and that is Yummy, because Yummy, even though it's been out for 6-7 months now, it's still, I cannot get that album out my head. What an album.
Coming up on Surprise Cast. Hello, everyone. This is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page, host of this podcast feature. Today, so we have Laura Dean and Liam Walker. Hello, Liam. How are you?
Hello there. I'm really good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. Could you tell all the podcast listeners where you are podcasting from?
I'm podcasting from South Shields, which is a town in the northeast of England.
Laura, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thanks for inviting me here. I'm based in Warrington, so that's in between Manchester and Liverpool.
Tell the people, the listeners, what you do. What's your job?
I work in PR for a luxury jewellers. So they have a magazine. I write the magazine, basically talking about celebrity jewelry and things like that. So it's completely different because I write music reviews in my spare time. So everybody thinks that I do that full time. And then I'm like, oh, I was writing about a necklace today, and everybody's really confused.
So where can people find these reviews and all this good stuff?
I write for a website called God is in the TV. So they're on Facebook and Twitter. Lots of James reviews on there.
Yeah. Liam, you and I have something in common.
We do, yes.
Yeah. Do you want to tell the listeners real quickly what you do?
Yeah, so I work with primary school children, so elementary school for American listeners, and I have 6 to 7-year-olds in my class.
Nice.
But primarily I work with the children who've got like additional needs, special needs.
Aww.
That's mainly my role.
Nice. Roughly how many students do you have in your class?
30.
30?
That's normal.
Oh, I won't tell you what I used to have.
How many did you have?
16 to 20.
Lucky thing. No, 30 is about the average size of a class in the United Kingdom.
Who do I need to talk to shake their head and shake them around and be like, no, this isn't babysitting?
Yeah, 30 children.
That's unwieldy. And I always tell adults, I was like politicians, I used to tell them like, okay, sit in a room with 30 adults and see what you can get done. Not much.
It is hard, and we do get things done. I don't know how we do it, to be honest. You've got 30
I
children.
bet you get it done.
Oh, but get it done. Got to. But like 30 children all working at very different levels.
At that age.
That's
a whole nother podcast.
In my class alone, you've got children working at the right level, like high achieving. And then at the lowest, you've got children who are still working at like almost like a preschool, kindergarten sort of level.
Well, as I said,
children who still can't read and write in the same classroom. Bizarre.
Yeah, just throw music on, you're all good. So let's do a few icebreaker questions. Liam, this one goes over to you. I want you to think of the last book that you read. Would you recommend it to our listeners or not?
Oh, well, I'm not really much of a reader, to be honest. I'm more just so engrossed in music, but I did start reading Tim's book, and yes, I would recommend it. So When I Died for the First Time is Tim Booth's first novel that took him 10 years to write. So if we're going to get a sequel, it's probably going to be another 10 years. But so far through it, I've really enjoyed it. And when I was in Portugal, I was lucky enough to hear Tim read an extract from it. And it was impressive. It was pretty cool.
Is it really geared towards James fans, or is it for the common folk reader?
No, I would say it's for the common folk. Like, there's bits in there. There's things in there you think, oh, yeah, that's a little James Easter egg there. But some of it is just the music world and just what it's like to be like in rock and roll, and as one of the lyrics in James, to live like a Rolling Stone.
Thank you for sharing. Laura, this icebreaker question is for you. If you were to teach a school subject, what school subject would it be and why?
I think probably psychology. I studied that at university and I'm just so fascinated by people's behavior and things like that. And I know Tim shares an interest in that, and he reads a lot of books that he recommends on Twitter, which I always take his recommendations seriously, and they're always amazing. So feeds my interest.
Tell the listeners how you got into psychology.
I wanted to be a forensic psychologist when I was younger because I was obsessed with CSI. But I was more interested in why people did things and people's behavior rather than the fingerprinting and the DNA tests and stuff like that. So I think that's how I went into psychology. And then I did criminology and psychology both together at university. It was just so interesting.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Let's move on to really what we're here for and to get into the belly of the beast. And of course, we're talking about a band that all three of us greatly respect, admire, love, embrace, all the good feels here. Liam, tell the listeners, when did this band enter into your life? And what was it about their sound that caught your attention?
Well, James have always been in my life because my mum was a fan back when she was younger, back when James were big in the early 90s. But so it was always in my life. But when I really got into them was in 2016. I bought her tickets for her birthday. It was a big birthday. I'm not saying which one because she'll kill us. And yeah, it was my first concert. And then I was blown away by the sound that all these people on stage were coming together to produce. And it was just so impressive. And from that gig, I was just hooked. And I haven't looked back. But I just feel they've got a sound and they stick to it, but they change it so much. Every James album, you're listening and it's James, you can hear it's James, but every song, every album is just so different as well.
So, Liam, as you were discovering this band, what did you think? Were you paying attention to their lyrics?
Not initially. I think that's something that I've kind of, as time's gone on, I've paid more attention to, but originally it was just the song, the rhythm, the tune, like, is it uplifting? Is it just bouncy and making us like happy and excited, or is it more slow and mellow and like a more sad songs like All I'm Saying, where it's got more emotion in it? But then you have songs like Waltzing Along, where straight away from that initial first few tunes, you're just, oh, this is a banger, this is a good song.
Thank you for sharing, Liam. What about you, Laura? When did this band become a part of your life and why?
I used to come in from school and college and just throw the music channels on straight away. And Q music channel always used to play Laid.
Uh-huh.
So they used to play the video for Laid. And I just thought it was such a fun video. And it was such a uplifting tune. So I went down the wormhole of investigating who they were. And they'd just released Haymar. So I didn't at that time, I had no idea that this band had been huge and then they'd split and been away for so many years. So I always think it's quite a good time that I got into them. I'm glad I didn't get into them a few years earlier because I would have had the heartbreak of them not being around. But yeah, so I got Haymar, became increasingly obsessed, and then saw them at a festival a couple of years later. And now that's every year, festivals and gigs.
I love it. So what is it about their overall sound that speaks to you?
I think they've got one of those sounds where, because there are bands where you initially hear the guitar or you initially hear the drums, like with Blondie and Clem Burke and things like that. And you sort of focus on that one member. But James, every single member brings something to the table and it's such a full sound. And I love that. And lyrically, I think their lyrics have always really resonated with me.
I'm sure we'll touch on some of those lyrics later. Thank you for sharing. And I'm going to quickly share my introduction with this band. So my brother, I actually owe a great deal of respect and compliments to him because he really opened my ears to all this great music as he was a DJ here at a college in University of Virginia. He would send me tapes to the Bay Area where I was living, and these were his radio shows. And on one of the tapes, he had the song Come Home from Gold Mother. This is back in 1990. And I thought, what the hell is this? This is instantly catchy. It's infectious. It's got a great melody, tempo. I loved everything about it. And then there was a show on MTV called 120 Minutes, and they did like a 2 to 3 minute piece on this band. And from there, I just kind of entered that rabbit hole and just started to really get into the release of Gold Mother. And I particularly loved the album cover and the back of it. There's something big and expansive. And I will tell more a little bit later on what really solidified my love for this band. We're going to now discuss songs from 5 albums that we have each picked. We do not know each other's picks. It's kind of the surprise element here. So we're going to start with the first album, and then you can talk about your 2 to 3 songs if you like, and anything you want. Liam, we're going to start with you. What is your first album, and tell us some songs that you really love?
So the first album I've chosen was Pleased to Meet You, because it's kind of what could have been our last album, but I also think it's one of the best albums, and it's got some great songs like Space, which is one of those songs that starts off all slow and you think, oh, this is like a nice mood setting one. But then when those drums hit and it just bursts into life, it's just an incredible song. And even to hear it live, I was lucky enough to hear it at a sound check during the orchestra tour. They did it once that I know of, and it was just incredible. But also from that album, especially another one, which I think was probably one of the biggest from the orchestra tour, The Shining, which unfortunately didn't make it on to the orchestral album, which I'm quite surprised at because it worked so well with the orchestra, and The Shining has just got so much emotion to it. I can't believe it actually didn't make it to the orchestral album, being a song that was played nearly every single night. I think it actually might have been. But yeah, but then going completely off guard with that album, Gaudi, I absolutely love that song. It's just brilliant. So different, but like I've said before, it's just so James.
Yeah.
But it's a completely different direction for them.
Yes.
But I just think it is just an incredible, incredible album. And I don't think James fans talk about it enough. It's kind of like one of those ones that it's there, and everyone loves the music from it, but people kind of forget that that's the album that all these songs are from, like Getting Away With It. Like people forget that's the album it's from, and Getting Away With It's one of those anthems.
I would concur with you with that statement. It is an album that rests on the table of work that they've done, but it's something I don't hear people talk about often for whatever reason. And you definitely nailed some songs there. And with The Shining, I hold a vision that all visions are impure. Yeah, I didn't think about that on the orchestral album. That would have been a great one. Laura, what are your thoughts on what Liam just said?
Gaudi is one of my favorites as well. You'd never really hear people talk about Gaudi either.
No. And it's never played live, never.
No, I had a look when I was going through like albums and choosing, and they think they played it in 2000 about 5 or 6 times. It's got some really good vocals in it, and I think with Chloe now, that could be a great one for them to revisit.
Absolutely. Okay, Laura, what is your first album and some of your favorite tracks?
My first album was also Pleased to Meet You. So great minds, Liam. And my top track is Space as well. And I just completely agree. I think live, it's such an experience. And the way Tim starts. So it's almost like hushed vocals.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to the end, it's just all in. It's brilliant. And I don't think that made it onto the orchestral album either, did it? And
I believe it was played once. I've got bootleg recording, and I only heard it once, and it was in a sound check.
Oh, I wish that was on the album. It's just such a great song. Then Gaudi was my second, and then Senorita as my third song. I've only heard that once at the Girl at the End of the World album launch shows that they did in early 2016. And I don't think I'd largely paid much attention to it until then. I think, like, obviously, like, I listened to it when I listened to the album, but when I'd heard it live, it just exploded live. And I know Tim always says it's big in Greece, and they played it on the Greek gigs earlier this month. So maybe we just all need to go to Greece to hear it, because great song.
I believe it's a favourite of Saul's. I want to say Doncaster Racecourse, there was a gig. And I'm sure he played the opening bars to it when, as Saul does, he was mucking around on the stage, and he played the opening bars to it on the 12 string, I'm sure. But then he stopped, got told off by Tim probably.
Yeah, they did that little impromptu gig in the streets, didn't they, in Greece? And it was Tim, Saul, and Chloe. And Chloe doing the backing vocals just sounded fantastic. And
wow.
I hope that makes it back into. Hopefully, they all had such a great time playing it in Greece. They're going to bring it back into the set list for everywhere.
With those songs that you had mentioned, Space is a wonderful kicking off the album, kind of table setter, if you will. And it has an electronic feel at the beginning. And when I was doing my homework again for this conversation, I was at the gym and that song came on, and I put it on repeat 3 times. It just put me in that groove. And then speaking of groove, Senorita, I feel, has that amazing guitar lick that really anchors that whole thing down, and wonderful drum work. So I'm glad you picked those tracks. Awesome.
Yeah, I've just looked, and Space was actually played 8 times during the orchestral. So it was actually played quite a bit.
Okay. Thank you for, that's great. I'm glad you're able to pull that up. Okay, I'm going to share my first album. And, originally it was going to be Strip Mine, and that's the album that I really first heard of them. For What For, our radio station here in San Francisco used to play it all the time, and I did really like it quite a bit. But as I mentioned earlier to the two of you, I'm going to go with Gold Mother. And this was released on Fontana Records back in 1990. Obviously, it had the massive smash Sit Down, but when this was released, it was not on here at that time. Another thing that really caught my attention was Andy Diagram and his trumpet playing. This album is unique. It's diverse. It's dark. It's full throttle. And some people have likened it to maybe U2 stadium sound. I don't get that feel from it, but I can see why. And it really is a step up in terms of their sonic production. I'm going to go with my gold, silver, and bronze tracks here. My bronze tracks is Sit Down. I know it definitely is a staple. It's community building. It's anthemic. And it deserves all the verbal accolades that it has received over the years. And so that's my bronze pick. And I will say, without really dissecting that song, to me, it has one of the greatest middle eights bridges ever in a song. The silver medal goes to God Only Knows. That song fires me up. You want to talk about the anti-religious song, talking about Jimmy Swaggart and the contradictions and the hypocrisy of the church. And that song I've seen a couple times performed, and it just goes off the rails. And yeah, it's a wonderful piece of work. And then my gold medal track has to be Crescendo. This is a track I don't think I've ever seen them play live, but every time I hear it, it is the quintessential James track that takes its time to unspool itself. And there are so many little gifts along the way, whether it's his vocal melodies, whether it's the bass line, whether it's just that kind of that rhythmic pattern of the drum beat. It really is an award-winning tune. And I was going to ask, have either of you seen them play that song live?
Nope, never.
Okay.
I've not seen it either, but it would be great.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a listener right now going, yep, I've seen them several times. And, if you're listening, feel free to drop some comments. Yeah, so I'm going with the first Gold Mother. Let's do our second album. Liam, what's next for you?
I mean, it's just incredible. And obviously we've just got the sister album with Puddins just came out on vinyl, which you might be able to see behind us, which is just, both of them together kind of are one album, like a double album, but just incredible. I would say, so my goals for that album has got to be Way Over Your Head, because just what a beautiful piece of music. It's so warm and so, it is a song that honestly does make you feel so safe. It's just a beautiful piece of music, the way like the melody is and the lyrics. The lyrics are just so beautiful, like in need of a friend to come round and put you to bed. I just think it's a nice message. It's got a lovely message behind it. And it is just, it's brilliant live. Live is just, I think with a lot of James songs, you hear the album version and you're like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. And then when you hear it live and they've played with it a little bit and they've had a chance to learn it themselves and think, ooh, we're going to do that little riff a little bit different, it just gets a different lease of life. It's still the same song, but it's just incredible. So that was hands down my gold. Me silver went to Life's a Fucking Miracle, because life is a fucking miracle. And what a song, what a live song that I think the fans have just taken so well. I've known in the past that songs that have had expletives in it have not went down well. I remember when Extraordinary Times came out, there was quite a lot of swearing in that album from Leviathan and Extraordinary Times, and they didn't go down well. But this time, for some reason, everyone just fucking loved it. And it was straight away, it was taken in and accepted. And for this time, people don't like, well, not that don't like, but prefer the one with the swearing in rather than the Life's a Shocking Miracle, which is like the radio edit. But again, what a song from start to finish. And again, I think it's a song that now they've started playing live, I probably prefer the live version, the version that just kind of goes straight into it rather than the slow build up. I think it's one of those songs you've just got to go for it. And that's what they do live, and it is just so brilliant. And then for me, Bronze, it's so hard because it's such a good album, but probably Better With You. Again, probably one of the more slower songs on the album, but again, it's just such another beautiful one. The Better With You, like when Tim and Chloe are singing together, it's just so brilliant. And the rhythm that's in the song is just so soothing and so warm as well. It's kind of like Way Over Your Head. You listen to it and it just makes you feel happy and makes you feel safe.
Yeah, you nailed it with all three of those songs. And you look at the album cover, and I remember when this was released, and I thought to myself, without ever hearing much of the album at all, I thought, this is going to go down beautifully.
Yeah, I was the same when I first seen the album cover and the name. It was just like, well, this is different, but this is going to be good. You just know, when it's going to be good. And just, I think with James, especially if you're talking about album artwork, the kind of, especially the last maybe 10 years, they've just gone with like a singular item. So the lolly, Then you've got like the grenade, you've got the head for Colours of You. And I think that just makes their albums so iconic, like the covers, because they're minimalistic, but you look at it and you just know what it's going to be about.
Laura, do you have any sentiments based on what Liam just said?
I think Yummy is such a fantastic album, and it's been so well received that if we did this podcast this time next year, I can imagine it being number one for like all of our albums. And I think it's one of those albums that will be talked about forever, like one of the best in their career. But Better With You is just outstanding. It's my favorite song on the album. The bit towards the end where everybody's sort of in the moment doing their thing, and it's just Chloe singing and Tim's usually dancing, lost in the moment, and she sings Show Me Your Magic. And I just absolutely love that specific part of it live. And every time I listen to the song, I'm just transported back to seeing it live. I just love that bit of that song.
Yeah.
My second album's Laid.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, so it was very nearly Yummy. And then I thought, I can't not talk about some of these songs on Laid. So Gold, PS, I think is just such a sublime song. And I know they do play it fairly regularly, but somehow I always manage to miss it. I always seem to be at the shows where they don't play it, but I read online somewhere that it's quite a personal song for Tim. And I think you really get that when you listen to it. The emotion in the lyrics and just musically, the instrumentation is just beautiful all the way through. It obviously commands total silence at a show. And I once saw them play it at Manchester Arena, and there was a fight behind me. And I have never been so heartbroken and angry at the same time. Then Silver, Fiver, obviously. I think that goes hand in hand with PS, really. I would go as far as say that's the best song I've ever heard live. And in true James fashion, they still managed to change their songs up live, even when they've played them hundreds and hundreds of times. And I've noticed recently that Sol does a little extra bit with his violin in that, which is obviously gorgeous as any of Sol's violin work is. But I find that really amazing that they still can make those changes. Bronze, Dream From. It was very difficult to choose between that and one of the three.
Wow. Okay.
But I think they did it last week at one of the shows in the States, Dream From. Or did they do it in Greece? They might have done it. They've done it recently, but I think they only did it once. It's such an atmospheric song. I think like a lot of the album, it gives me goosebumps. I think there are so many songs on that album and you're just like, wow. I think they really found their footing with Laid and the way that they all come together. Dream From just, it astounds me because it sounds like it's an orchestra. Just absolutely fantastic.
So, how hard was it for you to not put Sometimes?
It was quite hard. And then I thought, I'll try not to do like a big single, because Sometimes is obviously such a staple song in their live sets as well.
Yeah.
It's so brilliant. It was very difficult to choose just three for Laid.
And that video.
I absolutely love that video. Their videos are fantastic.
I did want to ask you, Laura, and then Liam, with regards to this album. And Liam, you had been talking about the iconic album covers. Laura, what do you think about this album cover?
I love it. I think at the time, it must have been quite out there album cover. And I think that screams James.
Yeah.
I really like that. I like the story behind it as well, that they were just doing a photo shoot and then they were hungry. So somebody handed out bananas. It's just also very random, so very James. And I think that really encapsulates the whole band.
It is one of the most bizarre album covers I've got, but like Laura said, it's just brilliant, and it is so James that you can just imagine back in the 90s when they were doing the album, they probably just thought, right, how can we make the most bizarre album cover? And you can just imagine there being a bowl of bananas and them thinking, no, we'll eat them as well. Like, in just true James fashion, it was probably just the most random cobbled together thing at the last second that became such an iconic James piece of artwork.
Thank you, Laura. My second album, I'm going to start off a quote here. Tim said, Q Magazine, 1993, "I stand by 7. It's a good record. And if people have a problem with that, they can fuck off." I'm talking about 7. This is the album and tour that solidified my deepest love and appreciation for the band. When they came to the Warfield in San Francisco in 1992, I was in the pit, just so many people jumping up and down, moppy hair. And I remember watching Andy in the back doing his thing on the trumpet. And that's what really caught my attention. All these moving parts on stage somehow coming together in such uniform fashion. I love this album. I love the album cover. I'm going to say my bronze, this was very hard for me, but my bronze goes out to Don't Wait That Long. Again, kind of that quintessential James sound that I love. There's tension, there's mystery, there's build-up, there's a sea swell of music going on that's very inspiring and uplifting. Great track. You know, when I saw them last week, they did play Sound. And originally I had that as my gold, but I moved it to silver. And these can change at any time. But Sound is one of the greatest songs ever made, period. And it really takes you on that James journey, on that roller coaster. And it's one of the songs when you hear on the album, you go, damn, this is good. But when you see them perform it live, wow. And I love how they improvise. It could be a 9-minute version. It could be a 5-minute version. It could be a 7-minute version. All good by me. And I'm giving the gold medal to the last track, 7. I love this song so much. This has to be one of Tim's greatest vocal work. It soars. It breathes life into me. I used to listen to it when I do these walks in my neighborhood nonstop. And I try to move my feet and shuffle them to the beat. And it's one of those songs where I feel like it takes it to a transcendent level. And I get goosebumps every time I hear it. And so those are my 3 favorite tracks. And I was going to ask you, Liam, first, and then Laura, any thoughts on this album?
It's another one of those albums that you kind of do forget about, and you kind of think it's one of the more hidden ones as well. A bit like I said about Pleased to Meet You. But again, what an album, in 7. What a beautiful song. And I think you're right when you say one of Tim's best lyrically and how he sings it.
Yeah.
It is just beautiful. And I remember I think they played it at the orchestra once or twice, and it was just stunning. And I've heard it like live a few times, like just at gigs. And I think they bring it out, they play it a few times, remember how good it is, and then next tour comes round and they've forgotten again. I think they need to remember that it's one of their biggest songs and one of their best songs.
Well, and again, in great James fashion, all the instruments come, colliding together in such a sonorous way. And
yeah, I say when Andy comes in at that chorus with, like, I can't even do the tune, but you know that tune that comes in, you know when it's going to come, and you know what the tune's, because it's just such a nice piece, like a nice little solo he does.
Yeah. Fucking
but
great.
Like, the whole band, when in the different variants that they've played it, it's always the same song, but like you say, like James do, play it so differently, but it's still that same song.
Well, let's not forget, it came off the heels of this album, Gold Mother, and it just even blew it up even greater, that sound. And It was a big staple on MTV with Born of Frustration. And I remember everyone, all that. Oh, I just love it. Laura,
And that
thoughts?
still happens now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a really great album. I think it really showcases how brilliantly talented Andy is. 7, such a beautiful song. I love the way that it's just all in and then it just soars.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And I'm glad you mentioned Don't Wait That Long as well. I think that's brilliant. That's probably one of my favorites from that album.
This was hard to do. It's very hard to do. Okay. Let's go to our next album. Liam, you're up.
Right. For my next album, sticking this side of the revival, and I've gone with Girl at the End of the World. So Girl at the End of the World for me was probably, that was the album that was released when I first started going to gigs. And I remember that was the first time I'd seen them live because I went to the sign-in, because that tour, they did a big thing of doing sign-ins up and down the country. They did a full tour of it. Like Laura said, I think that you said about seeing them play Senorita at a sign-in. And they did a little gig at every sign-in. But for me, it's one album. It's just so fantastic, and I just love it because it's a bit of everything, and it's just a true style James album. But for me, I'll go backwards this time. So, Bronze, Girl at the End of the World. It is what a beautiful song. It's so somber, and it's just a song that I never tire of listening to when I put the album on. Yeah, I just do really like that song. But in second, Nothing But Love. Cannot beat Nothing But Love. What a beautiful, uplifting song, a song of like unity and loving people for their differences, and that's what the whole song's about. And it's just so nice when every so often when it comes up and it gets played live, and the different versions they've got of it, and when Adrian does that beautiful intro with the mini guitar, I don't know what it's called, and he does that lovely like little intro. But then when they did it on the orchestral tour, it had a bit of a different intro, and I quite liked that. I liked that they changed it up a little bit, and it had more of like a techno intro, I would say. But just, it's such a beautiful song. The lyrics are meaningful, and with James, a lot of James songs, a lot of their songs are meaningful, but that one for me does stand out. But in gold, Attention. What a song live that I've not heard for so long live, but just it captivates the audience when it gets to that about 3/4 in, and they all just stop, and you've just got Mark doing that sort of like techno-y sort of piano bit, and they all just stop, and it's just Mark playing that melody, and then it kind of just goes silent, and then bang, they all just come back together. For me, it's just one of the best songs they've done live. And they've stopped playing since lockdown. I don't think we've heard it since lockdown, because it was through like the Girl at the End of the World, Extraordinary Times. It was probably a song that would play nearly every night, and it was a song that you would look forward to hearing. And again, it's a bit like Sand and other songs where like they had different lengths. Sometimes they'd play a short version. Sometimes it would go on for 6-7 minutes, and they'd see how long they could drag it out for. Just an incredible song, and just an incredible album.
I'm glad you picked this album. I could be wrong. I feel this is the album that kind of gets punched at. It's the album that I feel people had a really hard time sinking their teeth in. Maybe it was too much of the electronica going on. I don't think so. It's an album that it took me a while to absorb all the moving pieces. But like so many of their albums, once you can sit with it, there's all these little rewards. There's big payoff and there's small payoff. Laura, your thoughts?
I absolutely love that album. I think it's got so many big live moments in it. Move Down South, Catapult. They were both amazing for the crowd and Tim coming into the crowd. And they did so much promo around the album. I remember they did all of those sign-ins, and they did the 2 like album launches, and they opened the album launch I went to with Bitch. So obviously, like nobody knew it. And I just remember being stood there, and it's got such a lengthy intro, all that
It's like a minute and a
instrumentation,
half.
incredible, all the like the instruments, and just watching the band. And I just remember thinking, we're in for a treat. And like, I don't know why people say it's got too much electronics in it, because I don't think it has at all. I think some people probably get used to guitar, drums, and obviously James aren't about that. James are about evolving. And I think Mark does such a great job of all the electronic stuff.
Let's not forget the wonderful album cover. It's so good.
Right. And again, it's a singular piece.
Yes.
It's just that simple, the sun, and with the girl watching it. It's just so simple, so just elegant and beautiful.
And
but
so
yet
many
so
people
iconic.
reenacted it, didn't they?
What'd you say, Laura?
So many people sort of reenacted it in photos, and that was really cool. It's like a piece of promo that the fans just sort of delivered.
Yeah, no, it's a really solid album. And I will say, as I mentioned, I think in our chat in the Facebook Messenger, for the listeners out there, I used to be a teacher of elementary students, and my students would learn songs, and I'd play them on the big screen on Spotify so they could see the lyrics, and we'd practice singing them over and over. We'd go down to our local market and sing for the parents and for the employees there. And 2016, that's when I introduced them to the song Nothing But Love. And that year, my students just fell in love with it. And we'd go out to the field, and I'd say, all right, a cappella, Nothing But Love, go. Girls, you're going to take this part. Boys, you're going to take this part. And at the very last day of school, we went down to the local market in Portola Valley. And I didn't know this was coming, but I had a playlist. We were rolling through different songs, and Nothing But Love came on. And my students pushed me from where I was standing on the curb. They pushed me into the center, and they made a circle around me. And they all kind of held hands as they were belting the tune of Nothing But Love out. And I got teary-eyed. And I mean, it was already an emotional day leaving these students, and they were singing this song. And yeah, it's an amazing track. Great pick. Laura, your turn.
I've gone for La Petite Mort. My favorite track, so my gold has to be All I'm Saying.
Okay.
It's just a wonderful track, and the video with the wolf. Oh, it's just gorgeous. And I think we know that Tim writes from the heart, and it's about the passing of one of his close friends. And it's like he's taken the vulnerability of grief and made something really beautiful with it.
Yeah.
I wish we could have it in the set more often, but I think we'd all just sob. So it's probably not the best thing. Silver, I've gone for Frozen Britain, which I don't think gets talked about much.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
I'm not too sure, because I'm sure it was one of the songs that got used in the teasers as like the album was going to be released. And I'm surprised it wasn't a single, because it's one of those songs that you could imagine hearing on the radio. Maybe it's the Emily Come to Bed bit, maybe it's that bit. But my best friend's called Emily, and on that tour we did a couple of dates together. So she was like absolutely ecstatic with that song. So I think I just tie really good memories with it. But I think it's such a bouncy song. It's quite synthy, and I just think it's a really enjoyable song. So it's definitely one of my favorites. It's very infectious. And then final track was quite difficult choosing just three. I went for Interrogation, which I don't think we've heard live in a while.
Wow. Okay.
Because there was one summer where they played it quite frequently, and that's a song where they can chop and change it live. They'll like remove the middle bit and stuff like that. And I think Tim's vocals are just like nobody could replicate them in that song. I don't know how he continues singing afterwards, like how he continues doing the set. And Andy's trumpet as well. Just such a beautiful song. And so different to like Frozen Britain, for example. It's quite synthy. And then you've got Curse Curse. And then you've got Interrogation. And All I'm Saying's just it's quite an experimental album, isn't it?
It sure is. And it's a hell of an album. And I'd love to get Liam's thoughts on this, unless this is an album he's picked later down the line. Yeah?
No, I haven't picked it. It was one of the contenders. For me, it was between that and Girl at the End of the World.
Okay.
And because Girl at the End of the World was one of my first ones that I went out and physically bought, Girl at the End of the World had to take place. But yeah, what an incredible album. And I would agree, very kind of experimental because they're all so different. And I mean, the whole album is completely about death, and that, and Tim said it is. They might sort of called it all about death. But it is an incredible album. Interrogation, yeah, it was one of those ones live that got for quite a long time, and then again, like Attention, it's disappeared. But what a staple in the album. It is just a brilliant song, but so different to ones like Frozen Britain, which I've never been able to hear live, which I'm gutted about because it is such a good song. And yeah, and Curse Curse.
Oh my goodness.
And I look with Curse Curse, have you ever listened to the first time they ever played it? It's so different to the album version and then the latest live version. That song, for me, is one of the most evolved James songs because the original version is very different. There's no techno in it. Yeah, so it's a brilliant version. If you look it up, like the first time they played it on YouTube, brilliant version.
Laura and Liam, and to all the listeners, thank you for sharing your feelings on this album. This album is a tribute to one of my former students, actually, who passed away 7-8 years before this album was made. And he had brain cancer. And he was going to change the entire world he was going to become a doctor, just like his mama and his dad. And he died at, I believe he was 18 years old. And when he passed, it rocked the whole community. So I told my students that year, I said, you're going to learn this song, Moving On. This is going to affect all of us for the next 3 months. And we're going to perform it for the parents. And we're not going to make a big deal. We're going to dress up in all white. And we're going to dedicate this to a former student. And when it came down to that day, performing Moving On, there wasn't a dry eye at that grocery store where I take the kids singing. That song, to me, it's just beyond comprehension as far as all the elements coming together in a way that is so personal. It's so moving. Andy's trumpet, and of course the award-winning video. And if people have not seen the sessions where they did the slower version of this, the more stripped down, it's very reminiscent of Sinead O'Connor. Nothing Compares to You, in the way that Tim's face really says it all. And when he drops that tear, it's astonishing. It's an amazing version of the song. So check it out if you haven't seen it. Great pick. Love it. And I did not pick that album. I am going with a cautionary tale. I'm going with an album that had an album cover that really drew a lot of controversy. And of course, I'm talking about Hey Ma. I feel like this is the album people forget about. For whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe it was so long ago. Maybe it's their comeback album, whatever you want to call it. But when you threw this album cover and this is what you come back with, I'm all in because I knew it was going to be potent. I knew it was going to have lyrics in there that are going to be biting and gripping and punchy and raw. So this album, Hey Ma, this was, again, very hard for me to pick. Wonderfully produced by Lee Muddy Baker and James. Here are my metal tracks. We're going to start with White Boy. Again, going back and doing my homework. This was on repeat several days ago. Just fires me up. But when that chorus goes off, epic. My silver medal goes to a song I can listen to over and over again. It's Waterfall. It does make me feel alive. It brings out the spirit in me. It's cleansing. It's refreshing. Even though the song, the lyrics that's the cautionary thing. Great lyrics in that song. There's a wonderful Jules Holland performance they do for this song. And then my gold medal track. I don't know what is it about James, but their last songs on the albums really get to me. I Want to Go Home. Epic in James' brilliance and fashion. It's what I feel like they do best. It's the slow building and the climb to ascension, the eargasm of sound, if you will. And I remember they were on KEXP radio down in Los Angeles, and Larry had joined them. And I think you can find it on YouTube, that performance. The sound isn't that great, but it's still wonderful. So yeah, I'm going with Hey Ma, and those are my metal tracks. Thoughts, Liam?
Yeah, I would agree. It probably is another one of those ones because obviously I said about Pleased to Meet You, kind of forgotten album. And then the next one out 7 years later is Hey Ma. They're the two that they do kind of get a bit forgotten about, but what an album, like, to come back after 7 years with that and the way that the songs are structured, they just flow so well. They're just
you know brilliant. What? Thank you for bringing that up. I mentioned that with another album, right? But I didn't think of it that way. But now after you mentioning that, yeah, thank you.
Just the way it goes from goes in with bubbles, it like quite slow, but then it builds and builds, and it kind of starts off and you're thinking, ooh, is this going to be good? And then by the end of the song, it's like, yeah, Games are back. Like, they've came back with a bang. And then going into Hey Ma, obviously 7 years away, obviously they've got to have that political element in. And
yes,
Hey Ma, like, Now the Towers Have Fallen, All the Just in the Air, so obviously a little tribute to, like, obviously what happened with 9/11. And obviously the wars that were going on at the time because of that. Just such a brilliant album. And then the way it goes through, and then you get of Monsters and Heroes and Men and I Want to Go Home. Those two songs are almost one song clipped together.
Yeah.
The way they blend so seamlessly.
And that's a perfect.
I've got to agree. I Want to Go Home. What a song. And it just, and sometimes I play it when I'm going to work because it is just like, because I want to go home. I don't want to go to work. And it is just like, it's a live song. When they play it live or on radio, it just builds and builds and builds. And then it gets to that point in the song where they're all just doing that different thing, really, really going for it.
Yeah.
And they just
and in that clip,
let loose.
Have you seen that clip?
I haven't. I've noted it down. I'm going to look for it.
Okay, look for it, because Larry goes off and he goes in right with his vocals too. Laura, have you seen it?
I don't think I have, no, but I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this album, Laura?
I think it's such a strong album. It's so powerful. You can almost tell that they've had a break and they're all so refreshed and so recharged, just really hitting the top. I'm glad you mentioned White Boy, because that's one of my favorites. And I don't think that gets enough love. And it's so different to, like, of Monsters and Heroes and Men. And then you've got White Boy, which is like a little bit chaotic and it's so fast. And it's one of those songs where from the intro is like a tease, the way it's like, ha 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 ha. And then like it just bursts in. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And the album cover as well, it's just so different, so odd, but still going with that singular thing. And I know obviously the one we've got is different to the one you've got because yours hasn't got the gun on it. I know there was a water pistol version, wasn't there?
Yeah.
It's three different versions. I mean, I've got...
Oh my goodness. To all the listeners, what I'm looking at, and maybe Laura's looking at the same thing, I'm looking at a James museum.
It's definitely a museum we'd want to visit.
Yeah.
You see so many albums, so much merch.
All that love.
Somehow I've got the American version with no good on.
Yeah.
I don't know how I've managed that. But
which is so frustrating, because this is what art does, right? It's provocative, it's evocative, it's controversial, and I understand why there are versions of this, but compared to now, what people are releasing in album covers, this is pretty tame.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
But I get it. Okay. Liam, what's your next album?
So for my next one, I went with Be Open by the Wonderful. What could be better than celebrating 40 years of James in the way they did? Orchestral, reimagining 40 years worth of songs, just putting them in such a different light in such a beautiful way. Some of our most iconic songs, as if you've never heard them before, as if they've just released them as brand new songs. It was just such a different album. It was an album I wasn't really expecting. I know we were kind of expecting another orchestral tour, because the ones that came like nearly 10 years before that, more than 10 years before that, went down so well. We knew it would happen again. And 40-year anniversary was just the perfect time. But I never imagined we'd get an orchestral best of James. Just what a genius thing to do. But for me, on that album, in bronze, I've gone with Sit Down. Sit Down for me it's the song that I'll always remember. Whenever someone says to me, James, I think for anyone, when you hear James, you think Sit Down. And it is one of my favourite songs of the band, because it's one of the most iconic ones from my childhood. It was one of the ones that would have been getting played the most. I would have heard more. But for me, I prefer Sit Down, electric, like going full throttle. As beautiful as it is, quiet, and more like with more like love and more, how do you put it? Just more slow. I just think it's not so much a slow song for me. It needs that full belt. Them all going at it. Them all just going for it. But it's still, they've done it so beautifully. And Joe Didell has worked so well. He's done such a good job at changing that song and making it an orchestral piece. In silver, I went with Love Make a Fool. Because what a song. Like, why we're not hearing it more? Because it was the only one made for the album. It was brand new, never heard before, and just an incredible song. And it just starts off so slow, and the choir coming in, and you have the orchestra coming together slowly. It just builds and builds and builds, and then it gets to that sort of like bitting you towards the end, and you can just almost see Tim recording it. You can almost imagine the fact he'll be dancing away when he's doing like the yap bits. It's just such a lovely, lovely song. I can listen to it on, and I just think it's a song that they maybe need to perfect live without an orchestra, like other songs that they've done the opposite to. I think that was made for an orchestra. They need to make it for like just James, like they've done with other songs and made them orchestral.
Can we guess your gold medal?
Go on, then.
I think you picked Alaskan Pipeline.
Laura, are you going to guess?
Oh, Medieval. I think it's Medieval.
What is it, Leo?
Both wrong. The Lake.
Oh.
The Lake.
I really thought it'd be Medieval with the drums. And
I do love Medieval, and I like the fact it's came back a little bit. We've been hearing it more. Obviously, we heard it in Dublin not long ago, and I'll come back to Medieval because it is such a great song. But The Lake, it is just such a beautiful, beautiful piece of music. And it's a B-side. It's always the bloody B-sides with them. That B-sides are golden. A James B-side is just, it's the best songs. I don't know how they don't say it. They say themselves that they don't think they're good enough. And I don't know what planet they're living on half the time, because especially like the lake, it's just stunning. The lyrics, the melodies in it, and especially the way it's kind of been brought lately with the orchestra and Chloe bringing her voice into it, and the way you had the choir in it as well. It just kind of gave it that little new lease of life. But it's all, even when you hear the album, the B-side version, it's just an incredible song. And I'm so glad it made it to the orchestral album. But going back to Medieval, what a song. Especially when they've been using it lately with the new graphics on the screen.
Wow.
Which I don't know, if you didn't get Medieval in your gig, you wouldn't have seen it, but I might have filmed it, so it might be on my YouTube channel if you take a look.
Laura, what are your thoughts?
Such a stunning album. The Lake is one that so many people adore The Lake and talk about it all the time, and I've never really clicked with it. And the second I heard it live, because that starts off quite slow, and then there's a moment in it, and it's just like, wow. So I'm so glad that live version made it.
Yeah.
Look Away, I think, on that album.
Look Away.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And
to be fair, this has been picking me gold, silver, bronze. This was probably the hardest album to do it on, because it's a compilation of 40 years of music. And if there had been songs that were played live that had been on the album, my list probably would have changed a little bit. But because they could only put so many on, and they recorded, I believe, 32. There was 32 orchestrated songs. And obviously they couldn't all go on the album. But I think if it was done differently, my choices would be slightly different. Because some of the songs they did live were incredible.
I'm really bummed, in a good way, of course, and I'm so happy for others, that I didn't get a chance to see them for any of the orchestral shows. And I've seen footage, just incredible. But there is a song on there I was so surprised they put on, and my heart swelled. I'm going to read you the lyrics. You and me plainly held a vision. Hope to make this love stretch forever. Don't let go in this now or never. Hope there's change enough to say hello. It's over. Oh, God.
Do love that song. And they did Hello quite a bit during Living in Extraordinary Times tour, when they supported themselves and did an acoustic set. And Hello, I'll remember seeing it at the Royal Albert Hall. Oh, Hello. You could hear a pin drop. It was just silence. The whole crowd were mesmerized. That and Pressure's On at that, when they did those gigs. And it was almost orchestral because it was so stripped back and raw.
Yeah.
It was just fantastic. But Hello, the way Tim and Chloe just hold hands and look at each other. If you've seen the video, if anyone who's listening was there live, the way they did just hold hands and sing it was just stunning.
Whew, I'm getting goosebumps. I love it. Okay, Laura, what's your next album, final album?
I've gone for The Night Before, because those two mini albums, I absolutely loved them, and it was really difficult to choose which one. But I've gone with The Night Before because really these are 3 gold songs. But the gold is Porcupine, which I just think it's sublime.
Yeah.
The vocals, the instrumentation, the chorus. And I had a quick look online, and they've not played it since 2010. But I've never heard it live. And, I'd absolutely love to. Silver, 10 Below.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love the build-up and the chaos towards the end when Tim's got the megaphone. And that's not one that, if you'd have said to me, guess what songs they're going to do with an orchestra, I would never in a million years have even considered 10 Below. But they managed to do this fantastic, gorgeous version of it. Just brilliant. And I think it's one of those where Tim just knows what it's like to be human. When he writes his lyrics, they're so genuine, and I think they resonate with so many people.
Yes.
So about the line about being from a broken home and sitting at the end of his bed with headphones on his head, and it's just fantastic. And then finally, I don't know if this is cheating because it's a bonus track, but All My Letters.
That's fine.
That's another one that it's quite a calm song. It's quite comforting, and lyrically, write a message in the sand. Just do the best you can. That must resonate with so many people. It's just such a gorgeous song.
Liam, any thoughts?
Well, firstly, have we not got one more album each? Did we say 5?
Oh yeah, we've got one more.
No, just because you'd said about.
Any thoughts on what Laura just said?
Agree with it all, because this was my next one. I picked the night before as well, because what an album!
Wow.
For being a mini album, it's so powerful. It's so big. Like you could easily add more songs to that album, and it would be incredible. But yeah, I agree. Just the lyrics behind it. It's got a lot more feeling behind it, a lot more emotion. You can tell like Tim's talking about himself. Obviously, he's talking about himself. He's talking about his time in boarding school on 10 Below. And All My Letters, it is just an incredible, incredible album. And the lyrics do, I think, like Laura said, they resonate with so many people. Like they do your best you can. That's the sort of thing that I'm a teacher, and that's what I say to the kids. I say, just do the best you can. And I think that message is really important. It's probably one of the most important James messages that's in there.
Yeah.
Out of all the messages, they've got like nothing but love and many faces, we all belong here.
Yeah.
Just do the best you can, because that's all anyone should ever focus on, is doing the best you can.
Okay. I am going to go with an album that I just love the album cover. Yes. This is All the Colors of You, 2021, still in partial lockdown phase, migrating out of it, still political, still charged, like a ticking time bomb ready to go off. When you start an album with 0, you won my heart already. However, here are my metal tracks. Miss America is my bronze track. I actually like the acoustic version better, and that long intro by Saul, jaw-droppingly good. I love the poking of the lyrics, the biting lyrics, and it forces people here in America to really examine how we're behaving. And yes, he calls out the president at the time. It's an album or a song that, again, one of his strongest vocal performances. Absolutely love it. My silver medal track, I don't know how they do it, but they do. It's the last track, Exist. When I first heard this, I was like, what the hell is this? This is really different. And it stands out from the rest of the songs. But when that drum beat kicks in, holy crap. It's one of my favorite James songs ever. And my gold medal track, Laura, what do you think it is?
I'm going to say Beautiful Beaches.
Ooh, a little ode to the fires down in LA. Nope. Great guess. Liam?
Oh, I kind of thought that would have been it, but it's not the guess I was going to go for. I'm going to guess Magic Bus.
Great guess. No. It is Wherever It Takes Us. If I ever see that song perform live, I'm going to lose my mind. I would die to see them perform that song. I know I've used the word quintessential, but I can't think of another word. It is the archetype. It is the James model of how they build a song, scaffold it, layer it to this amazing crescendo, this communal experience. And I love that techno feel to it, and one of the most beautiful choruses ever. It does remind me quite a bit of Way Over Your Head. Maybe they're relative songs, I'm not sure. But yeah, I love this album so much. It from start to finish, it is freaking good. Any closing thoughts on my words, Liam, in this album?
I would just agree. Like, some similarities between Way Over Your Head and Wherever It Takes Us. I feel like the reception at a performance is very similar. The way the crowd kind of carry it and keep singing along and keeps going. But Wherever It Takes Us, incredible. What a song. And I'll just love that drum beat that comes in towards the end and the heavy drum of just we're all in, and it just keeps going and going. No, I did love that one live, and I'm so sorry you've never heard it live.
There's the dagger.
I'm sure you've watched videos online and I've recorded it loads of times. It's on my YouTube, but yeah, incredible. But for me, on that album, I really loved Magic Bus. Magic Bus. At first, I wasn't so sure, but it's the acoustic version. When they did the campfire, and they did Magic Bus and Miss America from that album, I then heard it in a different light, and then when they did it on the orchestral tour, it was incredible. And if they had have put that on the orchestral album, that probably would have been my gold.
So I very nearly chose this as my last album.
Okay.
But Wherever It Takes Us is such an interesting song because it's like a story being told in chunks.
Yeah.
The communal feel at the end of it when all of the band are singing. I remember the All the Colours of You tour, the lighting was phenomenal. And I remember them all being lit quite well as they were doing that end bit, which was wonderful. But for me, Hush on that album, I think has that vibes.
Yeah.
It's such a gorgeous song. Quite dark, I guess.
Yeah.
About somebody being murdered and then the murderer turning up at their funeral. And
oh, God.
But you wouldn't think it was, if you didn't pay any attention to the lyrics, you wouldn't think it was dark at all. I hope that they managed to incorporate that into the live sets. But my favourite song live is Beautiful Beaches.
Yeah.
I think that's another one, dark lyrics about the forest fires and somebody packing up their whole life and escaping. But it's so bouncy, it's so upbeat, and it's such a joyful melody. And the
energy that one gets on stage is just...
When they have time,
When they have time and they do the long version,
and it's Dave and Debbie both playing the drums,
doing that duet of drums, and them all almost bowing down to them.
It's wonderful, I love that. Yeah, when they bow down, and it's like, this is your turn now. Like,
this is your moment.
Look at these guys.
Because the drums, they're always in the background. Like Dave and Debbie, what a job they do. They don't stop. That entire gig, they don't stop.
And depending on where you are, you can't see them.
I know, because where we always stand like Andy side. We rarely get a good look at Dave.
No.
And like Debbie's kind of in the middle, and depending on the stage setup, it's sometimes hard to see her. Depending on the height of the stage, sometimes like her kit is just so big, you can't really see her. But when it's Beautiful Beaches and the spotlights are on them, it's just incredible.
Yeah, it's great to shine the spotlight on them because they're the driving beat of the band, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
it's a great album to introduce Deborah and Chloe.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, it was the first one of them both in it. They weren't in before that. They'd not been on an album.
Yeah. Okay, Liam, your turn.
So, as I already mentioned, my final one is The Night Before, because what an album, and how it kind of reflects the Morning After. They go hand in hand, but obviously they're two very separate, very different albums, yet they go together so well. It's crazy how they've managed to make these two separate albums to go out as a joint sort of venture with very different ideas in both of them, but yet they join together so well. It's just, I just love both those albums together. But top one out of the two, The Night Before, because it's quite dark, it's quite mysterious. But for my bronze, I've went with Dr. Hellier.
Mm.
I really like it. What a different song.
Yes.
And the lyrics are just bizarre, but they're absolutely great. Like I just love the line in that as he approaches the Death Star. Because I'm a big Star Wars fan. I just thought, what a bizarre lyric. Doesn't link to anything in the song. It's just as he approaches the Death Star. It just always makes me smile that little bit in that song. And I'd love to know exactly what's going on in that song because it's just so different and so bizarre. But it's just got such a nice tune to it as well. And it would be one that I would love to have heard live, and I haven't.
Oh, really?
No, I've not heard it live. I don't know. Laura, have you heard it live?
No, I've never seen any videos or anything online either.
I know, I was just checking on one of the three. Let's see if it was. But while I'm looking for that, in second place, silver, All My Letters. Because just what another beautiful, mesmerising James song. Oh, Dr. Hellier has been played quite a few times.
Okay.
2010 only.
Oh.
They only played it in 2010. So maybe we need to get that one back. But yeah, All My Letters, that opening lyric, James in the green room with Will Smith and Jay-Z. Now who do we pretend we used to be? It's kind of true. Like sum us up in the shape of a daisy. Yeah, they are. How do you sum James up?
Right.
Like when a total stranger says to you, "Oh, who are James?" How the hell do you sum them up? Because they're beyond words. You can't describe them because they change so much. Yet they're always James. It's just the only answer. It is they are James.
Yeah.
But I do love the lyrics from that song. They're just so meaningful. I think it's a very meaningful song. As in my first choice, Templo.
Oh.
I just absolutely adore Templo from that album. I love that sort of intro with that sort of whistling.
Mm-hmm.
Is just, and when they played it on the orchestral, was just phenomenal. I was so glad that I got to hear it one more time when they played it at Living. They did the two festival gigs where they did the orchestra this year. Incredible. And you can feel the pain in it, that it's Tim's childhood he's talking about, and you can tell that it's a pain in him that he's had to kind of like get out, and he's got it out of his system through music. And you can tell that he's still kind of, I would say he's probably still angry about his time at school, that he hated it, and he'd been sent away to boarding school all alone. And he's kind of got it out of his system a little bit. I love it. And I just love the feeling that he puts into it live. You can just see the way when he's like almost shouting the lyrics into that megaphone. He's still angry and he's still getting that out of his system. We've all got stories of a time at school, and I think that's his story of his time at school, and he's still angry about it.
Great perspective.
But yeah, just what an album, and see, it must be a good album. Laura's chose it as well. But yeah,
good picks. All right, Laura.
I've gone for Whiplash for my last one.
Ooh.
It was so hard to choose just 3 songs. Because for a start, you've got 3 huge singles on the album.
I know.
And I chose 2 of them. I was disappointed in myself for choosing singles, but with the songs on the album, you couldn't not. So I know people always say it's not very cool to have a single as your favourite song, but if I had to choose one James song, it would be Tomorrow. The reaction when Saul starts it with his guitar, it's just fantastic. Everybody, the mood just raises. Everyone loves it. And the lyrics, it's just such a fantastic song. I'd happily have them play that every single gig. You know how there's people that think that they should play Sit Down every single gig or Laid. I think they should play Tomorrow every gig. Silver, waltzing along.
Yep.
It's such an uplifting song, and it's got such hopeful lyrics. And again, it's resonating with so many people. It's just wonderful. And the video, I have to mention the video. The video looks like they're all having so much fun. And I think that's something I associate with James. Yeah. Because when they're on stage, that you can tell they're all having so much fun. when Tim goes and stands by Jim or Saul, or they're watching Debbie and Dave play drums, you can tell by their faces they're all having such a great time. And I think the video encapsulates that. And the song, when they play it, Tim usually comes out to the crowd, and it's just such a joyful song. And then Bronze, I went for a song that I don't think anybody's ever mentioned to me ever, Avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, especially if you compare it to the singles from the album, it's so different. It's so fast paced. It's quite difficult to sing along to. And the backing vocals really, really complete it. And I think Brian Eno is on the backing vocals, which makes it even better. But I'd love to see them do that one day.
Laura or Liam, I had heard this is not, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is not one of Tim's favorite album. Yeah? No?
Don't know.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I've not really heard that one, but
okay.
No, because they play so much from it still. I would be in two minds about it, because they still play Wasn't Long, Tomorrow. Some of the biggest live songs are from that album.
And there's songs as well that aren't singles, like Lost a Friend. They played, was it the Manchester Albert Hall gig? I think they played that then.
One after the Manchester bombing?
Yeah, I think they played that then.
Might have played it then, yeah.
So I think they do play quite a bit from it.
The album cover is very jarring.
It is
bizarre.
I mean, it's perfect, right, for the name of the album, right?
Yeah,
very smartly picked. But yeah, it is very bizarre. And wow, I actually didn't think either of you were going to pick that album, so I'm glad it's getting some love and attention.
It is an incredible album, and I mean, for me, from that album, Waltzing Along.
Yeah.
You always know when they're going to play it live. It's always second or third, because that's when Tim comes out. And I've been privileged enough. You know that intro, you know the beat, you know the sort of bells, you know when it's coming. And you can just see Tim's little routine of taking his coat off, and you think, oh, he's off. The hat comes off, the coat comes off. He's coming out to play. And I've been really privileged enough to hold him up to that song. I don't know how many times.
I love
he comes out to almost. Sometimes he goes in, sometimes he doesn't. I remember, where was it? I'm sure this was somewhere he came out to me, and I think I had him up for nearly the entire song, and my arm was on fire. He's heavier than he looks. Holding him up, it's hard work, but I'm so privileged that he trusts us to do it, and he knows that I'm, as he calls us, safe hands. But yeah, it's just, I think it's a moment for the crowd where he comes out for that song. I think it's a staple of the gig that's the song he comes out for.
Yeah. I love that I'm talking to you two about these concert experiences, because you have a greater breadth of experience than I do. I've only seen them 3 or 4 times, which is quite a bit, but compared to you two, I love how you're bringing out these moments that a lot of American listeners, fans, don't get to experience because they don't come over here as often. So I really love hearing your perspectives and your memories. This is great.
Yeah, I'm sure Laura would agree that just we are very fortunate that James obviously primarily in the UK, and every gig's different. There's a story from nearly every gig. You could tell a story, because they're all so different. The set list's always different, the mood's always different, but it's always James.
Even if something goes wrong.
Oh, something always goes wrong.
Yeah, there's a bit of chatter back and two on stage, which provides a brilliant memory. Tim will tell his chemistry joke.
The chemistry between the whole band is just so beautiful. Like you said, they are almost a family, and they're coming on stage to play, and they just bounce off each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you used the word chemistry, because that's a great word to describe their work. Okay, my final pick. I'm going to be very honest. It took me about 5 listens for this album to kind of break me open. And at those first 5 listens, I was like, wow, I don't know how I feel about this. I thought it was almost a little too sugary, a little too saccharine, a little too poppy. And it was one of like 6th or 7th listen. I was like, okay, those bastards got me again. You hooked me in, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I love it on vinyl, not because it sounds better, but what it forces me to do, it forces me, like listening to records, it forces me to sit with the music. And that's why I have a newfound respect for it. And I imagine in 2 to 3 years, this is going to be in my top 5 James albums. I don't know what else to say, what we haven't talked about with this album, but I will give you my awards here, my medals. So my bronze medal track is Shadow of a Giant. That intro, and I remember, and I'm giving this award, the medal to this song, because this was not a song that really grabbed me. And I remember last week after they played this, I said, okay, what was I missing before? Love the teamwork in that song. And I like how Tim uses more of a baritone voice. Silver is Life's a Fucking Miracle. I mean, you put that on, you're going to be dancing, you're going to be up on your feet, you're going to just be celebrating your life, whatever it is. And when that song went off on last week in San Francisco, man, I got my groove on, and it was just so fun. So fun. And you can tell they love playing that song. Liam, I think it was you that posted the Life's a Fucking Miracle teddy bear.
Yeah.
I loved
that
it.
was kindly donated to the James Fan Zone raffle by one of the fans, and when she got in touch to say, "Oh, I'm making you one for the raffle. What T-shirt do you want?" I was like, "Well, I think there's really only one option for this tour, and it's going to have to be that." But yeah, that teddy was very popular. I know Laura's still a little bit sore about that one.
I really wanted to win that teddy.
You really wanted to win it, didn't you?
I sent it over to Katrina, my girlfriend. I took the image and I just sent it to her in a text. I'm like, oh, this is it. No, but that song, it's such a, yeah, it really is anthemic. Okay. My gold medal track. Before the show started, Katrina said, what's a song you would love for them to play? And those opening notes, I grabbed hold of Katrina's arm. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to play it. Way over your head. Spine tingling, goose bumping. It's, it's one of those tracks like Sound, like wherever it takes us. It's just on a whole different level. And that video, again, Liam, you might have posted this, that video for that song they did at Glastonbury, amazing. So I thought, if I can ever see that live, and they played it, and when they all come singing together, it's like, it's what I imagine death to be like. You just kind of surrender to it. There's nothing you can do. You just say, okay, I'm arrested by this sound. I'm arrested by what the song's doing to me. Take over my existence. So yeah, that's my gold medal track, Way Over Your Head. And this is a wonderful, wonderful album.
There's so much unity behind it, the way they come together.
Yeah.
And singing those lyrics in A Whole Way Over Your Head, In Need of a Friend.
Well, again, to punctuate the ending, as they say in your neck of the woods, the full stop. When he goes down low in the registered voice, and people think the song's over, and there's a pause, and then he uses that warm blanket voice. Oh, love it. Let's do real quickly. In memory, I know you two have a plethora of memories. I'm going to quickly do this because it's actually, I just recently posted it. One of the concert memories of Andy up in the balcony during Sound. and he had the trumpet. And I just happened to have my camera. I just took my phone. Like I was just taking shots. He's up there. Boom. So that's one of my favorite memories. So tell the listeners real quickly a favorite James moment in concert. See if you can come down to one. Who wants to go first? Look at you. Oh, I don't know which one.
Which one? Off the top of my head, I would go for a gig in, I want to say it was 2017, which was like a hometown gig for me in Newcastle, which is the city just up from where I live. And they did because we've got a Times Square in Newcastle. And that gig, they were accompanied by, they were being supported by Peter Hook. Yeah.
Wow.
And before Peter Hook went off, Jim and Tim came on and did Love Will Tear Us Apart. So by that point, James hadn't even been on yet, but Tim and Jim came on and did Love Will Tear Us Apart. It's on YouTube. Watch it. It is phenomenal. But then it was James's turn, and they opened the gig with Sit Down. No intro, no like long drum intro or piano. They just went for it in a way I've not heard them play in such a long time. No one was expecting it, and the gig had peaked by this. There's only song number 1 and the gig peaked. And for me, that was just such a moment. It was the first time I'd ever heard the song live. I'd never heard Sit Down before that point live. So for them to open a gig with it, which I've not known them to do since,
right?
For me, that was just an incredible gig, incredible moment that just captivated the entire crowd. And it was song number 1.
That's the thing. There are so many bands that if they played their biggest, like one of their biggest songs first, they might struggle. But James just, no need for a struggle. Like sometimes they don't even need to play that song. Yeah, and that was a really memorable gig. But I think I'd go for the Bedford gig this year because I'm a big Johnny Marr fan, and they played, I think it was Festival maybe, or Latitude. They played at a festival together in 2014, and Johnny joined James for Come Home. And when I tell you that I have watched the one video that's on YouTube religiously for 10 years, hoping that there'd be another opportunity for this. And then when they announced that they were going to be doing these 2 gigs in July together, me and Liam were like, please let them play together. And we didn't think it was happening quite a lot.
No,
Johnny
did
No, Johnny did his set, and then we couldn't see him at the side.
I think my eyes were almost fixated on that side stage where we knew if he was going to come, that's where he would be. But then, was it about 2 or 3 songs from the end, you seen his guitar tech?
Yeah, I saw Johnny's guitar, because you can tell what Johnny's guitar's like, aren't you? It's a signature Fender Jag. And then Tim started talking about old friends, and I was like, it's happening. And then he came on and they did Laid, and it was just it was life-changing.
Check out my YouTube channel; it's on there. I try to be good these days with now not getting my phone out, and I'm glad I don't, because I'm living more in the moment. But that moment, it had to be recorded.
I've got a video, and it's like the Blair Witch Project. I'm on like Jim, and then I'm on Johnny, and it's just like all shaky, and then I obviously just give up, and it's the floor, and then it's just blackness and the sound for like 2 minutes. But yeah, I don't think anything could ever beat that. That was just phenomenal.
And the fact they did Laid as well, like, so they did a different song to the last time.
Yeah.
But what a song for Johnny to accompany on for that guitar entry, like.
Yeah, and they all looked so happy. Once again, it was like one big family.
They were having the time of their lives.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing I noticed, particularly with this band, is that they are living in the moment. They are so present. They are so dialed into what they're doing. And I get a sense they're very humble. They're very appreciative of the fact that they're still doing this and selling out shows and really bringing people together in a way when they leave, you feel different. Yeah. Okay. We're going to wrap it up with 5 questions. I'm holding an album in my hand, And I'm going to give you a clue. And then each of you are going to take turns asking 5 questions. And the only way I can respond is with a yes or no. So it really forces you to work as a team to start chiseling down and narrowing it down. So at the end, you're going to get to guess what album it is. Here is your clue. I'll give you several. Orchestral, expansive, psychedelic. Laura, what is your first question?
Is it a band?
Yes. Okay, that's your first question. Okay, Liam?
Is it a British band?
Yes, it is. Laura, your second question.
Are they still around?
Yes. Liam?
Have they ever had any involvement with James?
I don't think so. Third question, Laura.
Are there any females in the band?
There was one. Third question, Liam.
Have they performed live recently?
I believe they have. I don't know when, but let's just say in 2024. But they don't perform often. Okay, fourth question for Laura.
When they do they play big venues?
I don't think so, but they did play at Royal Albert Hall. Liam, fourth question for you.
Have they had like an iconic song that's been covered by many other bands?
I believe their songs have been covered. I know Keely Moss, her band Keely, has covered one of their songs. That's all I can tell you. Laura, fifth, final question for you.
Do they have more than a few albums?
Oh, yeah. Okay, Liam, you get one more guess. One more question.
One more question. I honestly don't know. Is there less than 5 members?
Yes.
Okay. I've got a guess.
Okay, so Laura, you're going to get the first guess, and then Liam, you're going to get the second guess. And Laura, your cat can help you if you want.
He's always helping. Band-wise, I'm thinking Pulp.
It's a great guess.
I kind of thought that, but I don't think they've done an orchestral album.
That's what threw me.
I know they've been playing with an orchestra.
So you're going with Pulp?
Yeah, I'll go with Pulp.
Okay.
I'm going to go with, did you want the band and the album or just the band?
No, it could be either one. Doesn't matter.
I'm going to guess, and it's a wild stab in the dark, but Snow Patrol?
It's a great guess. You got...
Snow Patrol reworked?
No, but you got the first letter of that band's name for this band.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, I think I know what it is.
We are floating in space.
Oh.
This is spiritualized. And the reason why I picked this is because of the orchestral sound, and also because it is one of my favorite albums of all time and is radically different from James.
Very different.
So thanks for playing. All right, you two. This has been a true pleasure. And for all the James fans out there, and just the casual James fan, hopefully you walked away with, have learned something from our analysis and breakdown of their work and our overall sentiments, and just this endless outpouring of love for a band that continues to push the envelope with their albums and their tours, their live shows. We're so fortunate. So thank you to the band. Thank you to Liam and Laura for joining me on Surprise Cast. And remember this, great music is all around us. You just need to keep your ears open. Ciao.